There's moments within any sports franchise that there are just pivotal changes that happen. Players leave, front office people leave, coaches in general, or coaches and managers leave. And the Guardians are facing this tonight with the final home game for Terry Francona. It's not been announced. It's weird. It's like the worst kept secret, which Terry has said. They've all but said that Terry Francona will be retiring, no longer managing the Cleveland Guardians. What he has meant to this town, the importance that he has had on our baseball team, doesn't need to be said. We all know that. But beyond that, and beyond honoring Terry and thinking about the 11 years that he has been here with 6 playoff trips and several Central Division titles, 1 World Series appearance, which we still should have gotten. Damn rain delay. But nonetheless, his impact on this town has been immense. But now we think about where we go from here. I think it's weird they haven't said he's officially announcing. We got Browns, Ravens, injuries aplenty for both teams. Future for Nick Chubb to be discussed today. We got it all for it right here on a Wednesday edition of the Matt Fontana Show. Welcome on in, everybody. I am Matt Fontana. He is Ryan Tyler. Welcome on in this morning. Happy to have you with us on Big Play. We're streaming live on the iHeart app. We're up on our YouTube page at Matt Fontana Show. And, of course, on social media, streaming on Twitter at Matt Fontana Show. Happy to have you this morning. We'll get into some Browns certainly this morning. I think a really interesting article from Nate Ulrich of the Akron Beacon Journal about Nick Chubb's future with the Cleveland Browns. And I completely agree with something that Nate had to say about Nick. We'll get to that coming up. We got the morning update. Little disclaimer for the morning. We'll be done a little early. Done about 10:45 this morning. Special show being recorded right after ours, so we got to get in for that. So we'll be taking you up till 10:45 this morning. But we got a lot to get to in between now and then. Tonight is such a weird night, Ryan, from the fact of we all know that it's Terry Francona's last home game. You don't hand out T-shirts that say, thank you, Tito, if he's coming back, right? But why, can I ask, and this isn't, I know it's a prideful thing with Terry. I know it's got to be hard for him to walk away from something that he has done for decades, not just, here, but just this has literally been his life. And I can only imagine what it'll be like, I hope, Ryan, in 25 to 30 years when I retire from whatever that I do. Hopefully it's hosting this show for the next 25 to 30 years. It's going to be awkward to walk away. It's the only thing that you've known. And there are people out there listening that maybe have gone through retirement or gone through a job change, something along these lines. That's not easy, but it's so weird that no one has said the retired word. No one has said that. It is not official. Like Miggy Cabrera is playing his last baseball games this weekend. We know that, and ironically against the Cleveland Guardians. We know Terry's retired, but am I reading it wrong? Like, is it weird to you, Ryan, that no one has said the retired word when it comes to Terry?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It is a little strange, and especially for me, younger, he's all I've known watching the Guardians. Obviously,
let me tell you about the Manny Acta.
I was gonna say, like,
let me tell you about Eric Wedge.
I have some faint memories of Manny Acta, but basically,
I'm sorry for that.
But basically, when I think of Guardians, the only thing I've known is Tito.
I mean, I was of an era of the 90s that I remember Hargrove, and I remember that era. And I always tell people, and people know this if you live through it, that will never be touched. What they did with the sellouts, with that lineup, that will never be recreated ever again. Like, that was just a perfect storm. And it was fun to grow up in that era. It certainly was. But you're right. For me, I lived through Charlie Manuel, and I lived through Joel Skinner on the interim basis, and Manny Acta and Eric Wedge. And I still remember when it came across from ESPN that the Indians at the time were hiring Terry Francona. Because remember, when he left Boston, he took a year off. He was in the booth. He was working at ESPN. And they said, no, he's actually going to Cleveland now. And we all go, whoa.
What year was that, Matt?
2013.
Okay.
I think 2013 was 2012. Because I'm going to say, obviously, he'd been here for 11 years.
Yeah.
But I think it's 11 seasons. So I want to say 2013 was his first year.
Okay.
I think. Because it was also, let me see here. Because this was obviously in the offseason. Okay, so that's right. He was hired on October 6th of 2012. So, like, the season had just ended 2012, and 2013 was his first year. Because don't forget, Sandy Alomar finished that season out after they fired Acta. And people thought that Sandy would just kind of assume the role. And that was kind of the other shock. You go, wait a minute, you went out and got Terry Francona. That was huge. Massive. A guy where in Cleveland we had gone to the 2 World Series in the 90s. We had the 2010s were, we should have won the World Series in 07 because you knew that us versus Boston in the ALCS, like that was the winner of that. The Rockies were not beating either one of those teams in the World Series. You had Fausto, whatever the hell his name was, Carmona out there, CC Sabat. I loved it, and that was the pinnacle of that success, and then you had Downshire. But you looked at Terry when he came here to do exactly what he did in Boston. We have a long curse here. Was the curse of Rocky Colavito or the curse of the GOAT or whatever. You needed him to end that. And you looked to him to do it. And he got damn close. But he brought in an era of baseball that you were competitive. Again, 6 out of his 11 seasons here, you went to the playoffs. And last year, I'll listen to people that say that last year was one of his best managerial jobs that he had ever done, with taking that team that they were and getting to the playoffs. Now, the problem, and I think the knock will be the sour taste in our mouth in 17, 18, when you're just dispatched in the first round. Because there are people, Ryan, it's a little like Ohio State. Remember when Ohio State won the national championship and everybody goes, well, wait a minute. They're a year early. And they're bringing back Joey Bosa. And they're bringing back Michael Thomas and Ezekiel Elliott. And they pooped themselves against Michigan State and didn't win it. Some people felt that way about the 17 Guardians. Where if you look at that lineup, where they added Edwin Encarnacion, pretty much brought back everybody, and you got jettisoned in the first round of the playoffs. That I understand, and if you want to knock and be critical today, today's not the day for that. We're celebrating Tito's time here with the Guardians. That team should have won a World Series. That team is arguably the best Indians Guardians team that we've had in a couple of decades here, and they didn't win it. Nonetheless, the culture change that he brought here, that's the biggest thing. Baseball managerial job, the baseball managers. Dude, and I say X's and O's from a football term. What is it in baseball? I don't even know because they don't even have that. It's just players. It's this guy starting at third. How do you use your bullpen? Now it's all like analytic printouts, and they just tell you what to do, and this is the lineup that's to be. Don't ever forget that the biggest thing that Terry Francona brought here was a culture, where he brought what the clubhouse was like, how the players interacted with one another, and how he interacted with them. If you hear any stories about Terry Francona, it is stories about team over self and how he approaches the game. As a lifer for baseball, how he approached it and what he brought to this team is his lasting impact. And now that is going away. Now we are turning the page. This was a great chapter of baseball in this town. It, like any good thing, must come to an end. And now we move on to the next space, the next thing. And we'll post this as our Twitter question this morning at Matt Fontana Show. Are you worried about the Guardians' future without Terry Francona? Are you worried about what this team is going to look like moving forward? I can already see it now, Ryan. There will be shots at the Dolans thrown in this Twitter question at some point in the Twitter inbox. Because the future of the team, people will always come back to how much do they spend? How much do they spend? And what players are they bringing in? Don't forget that the manager is a big part of that. Yeah, you have injuries and you have guys not perform. It's hard to do. But the managerial side of it, of the culture that you bring in, is important. And there's 2 schools of thought in this. Do you keep it in-house, which there are now reports that they're not going to do that, that this might be that opportunity for a clean break? Is Sandy Alomar on this team next year? I don't know. Right? Does a new manager that comes in saying, we need to flush some of this stuff out. This is my team now, and this is how we're going to do things, knowing that it might be an epic collapse and failure too. We got so, not late, but we fell into the lap of just Terry Francona's here, and Terry will figure it out. There were always questions about decisions that he had made and holding on to bullpen guys too long, but on the whole, everybody felt good about Terry Francona leading this team. He's not anymore. He's got 4 games left. And now you turn the page to another chapter of knowing that there's always going to be a fear of me that we enter the lean years. I don't want to become the Kansas City Royals. They went to the World Series and won. Fine, but they have been perpetually rebuilding. And yeah, they got a couple nice players coming. Baseball is so weird when it comes to rebuilds and bringing players up. And yeah, you throw the money. But I felt like Terry masked a lot of the issues, right? He found a way to get the most out of a situation where you're not spending a lot of money, where you had to sometimes pull some magic and you had to pull some stuff out and get to where they want. Now, did they ever win the World Series? No. But to bring in a manager to say, well, we're going to need you to work some of the same miracles and magic that the last guy did. That's hard to do. That's really hard to do. And then even just on a base level of the Guardians team moving forward, let's call it for what it is. They have a couple of nice pieces. Ryan, they don't have some super juggernaut pitching rotation or middle of the lineup. I like Tristan McKenzie and Shane Bieber. They're injured. Cal Quantrill injured. I saw some nice things from Gavin Williams. Yeah, I like Steven Kwan. He's fine. He's a starter. Andres Gimenez is an all-star level kind of guy. Man, did you see the one he took off the shin yesterday? It looked like it hurt. Jose Ramirez is an MVP level. That's about it, right? This isn't some team that's on the up and come where you have some guy like Elliday Cruz who just stuck it to us last night. I'm done with James Karinchak. I'm done. Like, seriously, I didn't want to get in the game too much last night, and they're playing the string out last night, but I had a wager on Tipico last night, and he done screwed that up. I'm done. Dude, Karinchak could move on somewhere and become the next Mariano Rivera. I don't care. I'm done with him. I'm done with Trevor Stephan. And that's the thing. It's not because Terry's holding on to these guys. They don't have everybody else. They do not have anybody else. There's questions if Chris Antonetti is still going to be here, right? All those Boston rumors came up. I would imagine he stays. I think Chris Antonetti stays. He finally gets to hire a manager. Think about it. When Terry came here, yeah, it was a lot of the relationships with Shapiro, and Antonetti was a part of that. But now he truly gets to lead a search for a manager. That's one of the things that I think any GM looks forward to doing is hiring a coach, whatever sport it is. Just don't hire Mike Babcock. Bad idea. And there's going to be a list of available managers, and people have already created that list. If Aaron Boone is going to be on, is John Farrell on, all that. That's, I think, a reason for Chris Antonetti to stay, which is good because if Antonetti build this team, I'm confident in Chris Antonetti to build this team up. Again, if they don't spend money, whatever. But there is a fear of me. There is a worry of me of what this team will be like without Terry Francona. Because the other thing is, Ryan, this team has to do it different. I've been labeled sometimes a Dolan defender. It's a bad label to have in this town.
A little alliteration.
A little bit. Dolan defender. I like that. I would say put it on T-shirts, but people will probably rip those T-shirts off of. And I don't even so much say that I'm a Dolan defender, is that I'm a realist on they have to do it different. This team has to do things differently. Whether you like it or not, that is how it has to go. From a monetary standpoint, yeah, David Blitzer could take this team over and just say, yeah, here's hundreds of millions of dollars. Just throw it all away. That'd be great. He's not the principal owner yet. Keep that in mind. So they are going to have to do things differently. And I think it takes a special manager to understand that. And the relationship that Terry had with the front office is not easily replicated. You could bring in manager X. I don't even want to put a name on it. And it could be somebody who obviously it's two schools of thought, like any coaching search. Here's a retread guy, a guy that has had this job before somewhere else, got out at Jettison, and, like Terry wasn't in Boston. He didn't have a lot of success in Philly when he started his career. He was a retread. Or you get the up-and-coming guy, right? And a lot of times in football, it's the hot coordinator name. And in baseball, you find some up-and-coming guy. Either way. But they're going to come here and have to understand that it's different. You are understanding that we can't outspend these other teams, that you sometimes are going to have to ride with the guys that are in the lineup. This isn't meant to be a shot. I'm assuming it's easy to manage the New York Yankees. And I'm sure that I'm sure Aaron Boone would disagree with me, right? Because I get that New York fans are rabid, but you can outspend mistakes there, right? Is Brian Snitker, who's the manager for the Braves, with a lineup like that, with Spencer Strider, it's probably pretty easy to manage. But they had to build that. They had to cultivate that. That's not the situation that somebody's going to walk into in here in Cleveland. You got a couple pieces here and there, but you have to figure out a way to make it work. And I'm worried about that. I'm worried about it. I am.
What if you obviously have a better grasp on the Guardians than I do. Honestly, if you had to put it in a percentage, what are the odds you think the Guardians could actually land Shohei?
0.000000000.
That low?
0.000000000.
Just a money issue?
Yeah. And we wait for David Blitzer because he's coming. For those, I keep throwing that name around. I think most people know he's a minority owner. He owns like the New Jersey Devils. He's loaded. He has a lot of money. He is what a sports owner should be. Another shot at the Dolans here. Their sports team is their side project. It's not the main thing they do. The Dolans, their main thing and their main source of income are the Guardians. They don't have anything else. What most sports owners are billionaires from a trucking company, like the Haslams, or a mortgage company like Dan Gilbert. And they buy a team because they've always dreamed to do that. Yes, it is a revenue source. Certainly in football, you could have the worst team in the league, you're still making money. In basketball, you can make money if you get into the luxury tax like the years with LeBron to go win a championship. Dan Gilbert was paying for that. Thank you very much, Dan, for that. Baseball is hard. We know that, but it is what it is. But they buy these teams because it's a status thing. It's I own this team, and it's their fun little side project. If David Blitzer takes this team over, that's finally where we're going to be at. And you should have that influx of cash a little bit to help out. They're not getting Shohei Ohtani. They're not. He's going to go somewhere in a market. And granted, whatever market he goes to, they will still feel the impact of a $500 million deal, right? He could go to Chicago. He could go to New York. He could stay in LA and go to the Dodgers. Any one of these teams, whoever signs him, make no mistake, that's still a chunk of change. That is not something to sniff at. Also, I'll put this down right now. Save this for the future. Old takes exposed or hot takes exposed, because I think this is going to be a good one. There is no world that Shohei Ohtani finishes out the deal that he signs. Everybody in baseball, Zach Greinke, washed up, terrible Zach Greinke. Ryan, he signed like 3 10-year deals in his lifetime because he just keeps opting out of them. Every one of these deals has opt-outs throughout the way, where if a player has some catastrophic injury like Prince Fielder, okay, they get the money, they get the security, and they get to move on. The vast majority of them sign this deal, get a lot of money, play really well, and then re-sign a deal and opt out. So whatever deal he signs, don't forget, you're going to look into this, he's going to sign a 10-year, $500 million deal. He'll see 4 years of that, redo his deal, and sign with somebody else or get traded or something like that. They're not getting him. And that's the thing. It would hamper this team anyway. It would be the biggest thing of you give him the money and then not have any money to spend with anybody else. Our Twitter question is up, at Matt Fontana Show. Are you worried about the Guardians' future without Terry Francona? Yes or no? A lot of votes coming into that already. I'm obviously voting yes on this, Ryan. I'm concerned about it. I need to see it. I have faith that they'll find the right guy, but at this point, when I don't even know who it is, and we are not going to play baseball games until, April of next year anyway, that mean anything, I'm going to be concerned. I'm going to be concerned until that time.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned this earlier, but yeah, I have to be worried just based on the fact that I haven't seen anybody else lead the Guardians in my lifetime. Like that I remember. Obviously, yes, I remember Manny Acta, but that's about it. So I would say I'll vote yes on that as well.
We'll flip over to some Browns, continue to vote on our Guardians question this morning, and really, tonight's going to be an honoring night of Terry Francona. It's going to be sad to see him go. I think for what he's meant to this town, for the scooter rides. Apparently, he wrecked his scooter recently, by the way. Yeah. He's got a lot of health problems, too, man. So I hope Terry gets right. And the other thing, to wrap up the Guardians quick, we know Terry's not going anywhere. I'd imagine he's going to continue to live here. I would imagine that the Guardians will reach out to a front office position, assistant to manager. Is that a good thing, though? I don't know. We'll debate that a little bit later in the show, if it would be good if Terry Francona stood around the team or not. So vote on that. We'll dive in the Twitter inbox at Matt Fontana Show. I'm at Matt Fontana 93. Browns back in action today out in Berea as they gear up for the Ravens. We talked so much about the Nick Chubb injury, which I do want to get to Nate Ulrich's article this morning on the Akron Beacon Journal about a decision that the Browns are facing right now today with Nick Chubb, and hopefully they do the right thing. But we stare across the field now to the Baltimore Ravens. Ryan, they are hurt. They are banged up, and they are not in a good position. Two of their starting offensive linemen missed last game, Ronnie Stanley, Tyler Linderbaum. You didn't have Odell Beckham in that game. You had Rashad Bateman got hurt in that game on Sunday for the Ravens. And they lost a running back like we did. Nowhere near to the level of Nick Chubb. But them losing J.K. Dobbins. I was reading around this morning a little bit. And one of the things that I picked up, this came from Jake Trotter and Jamison Hensley, ESPN NFL Nation reporters, and they did a combo article talking about the Browns and the Ravens and their injury kind of situation. And Jamison Hensley wrote, Dobbins' injury came at the worst possible time. Now, he's speaking more from a contract standpoint because Dobbins is an unrestricted free agent come March, and you don't ever want to be entering free agency coming off a massive injury. But he also talks about where they're at in the season because they have Gus Edwards and Hill, Justice Hill. Then they signed like Kenyon Drake. I think Melvin Gordon's there too. But you saw on Sunday what it was like. They can't run the football with anybody other than Lamar. And that is the one thing that they thought they brought Todd Monken in for to stop. They said, we have got to stop running Lamar Jackson. That's how he gets hurt. And frankly, that's not the best offense to run. And then what does he have to do on Sunday, Ryan? He has to run the football. And it's starting to see that this offense is only set up where Lamar has to run. And we know how the Browns do against Lamar Jackson. Granted, I don't know if it's Joe Woods. I hope it's the players. But we stop Lamar Jackson. We stop him from running the football. Frankly, we stop him in general. So if that's how the Ravens are going to have to approach this season, they're in a lot of trouble. And this seems like one of those games that it's massive for a lot of reasons, as we know. The AFC North, you get to the bye. Ryan, I'm getting a little vibe that we could just go ahead and just, even 4 games of the season, kind of send a little message to the Ravens to say, we'll put you out of your misery.
Yeah, it'll be a tough divisional game as it always is, but I'm not scared of the Ravens in the slightest, honestly.
It's weird for me. I have this supreme uber confidence for Sunday, and we all know how that normally goes in Cleveland when you just feel, and it's still the Ravens, but the fact that it's at home and they're kind of, I don't want to say circling the drain because it's just 4 games into the season. There's plenty to go. There are a lot of problems with Baltimore right now. There are a lot of problems. Ryan, they're 3 games in and they're already starting to question Todd Monken.
Yep.
I mean, granted, like, we just got done with Pittsburgh where Matt Canada is about to get fired as their offense coordinator too. Like, it's also so nice for us to sit back, and there will always be the naysayers about Kevin Stefanski. We're not having those conversations right now. It's not about our defensive coordinator being the worst hire. Because, by the way, I read an article this morning, CBS Sports, that he was the best offseason hire of any coach across the league.
Has to be.
I thought about that. I was like,
no
Jim
question.
Schwartz is right there.
Right now, no question.
So we're not having those conversations. They are in Baltimore. They are in Pittsburgh. Certainly having some problems down there in Cincinnati. Is it weird to say, am I going too crazy here, Ryan, to say that the Browns are the most stable organization in the AFC North right now? Am I off base with that?
I would,
Think about it.
Early in the season, I would say the Browns, I would, obviously, the Bengals got off to a rough start, so that doesn't help, but I guess right now,
What a statement. Wins and losses aside for a second. When is the last time where John Harbaugh is still in Baltimore and Mike Tomlin's still in Pittsburgh that I could say the Browns are the most stable organization right now? Every other team in this division has massive problems. They have massive issues that I don't think are easily correctable. I see what is happening with all these other teams, and I go, that's usually what happens to the Browns. Guys get hurt, and we start calling for coaches' jobs. And they're not calling for Harbaugh or Tom, even though there's always a groundswell in Pittsburgh about Mike Tomlin, which I think is so weird.
I do too. And I was talking to a few people from Pittsburgh, and I'm like, guys, you don't know how good you have it. And they're calling for his job.
Well, I mean, it's like anything where they I guess to a point you don't know how good you have it until you don't have it, which is ironically kind of a conversation that we're having with Terry Francona this morning, moving on from the Guardians. There's always an element when you have a job for 20 years, and it's not 20 years, but he's been there for, when did he take over Tomlin? Or, he was in the 09, so whatever. It's been decades, right? Your eye sometimes wanders where you do have it good and you think, but like, this question, that. And it sounds like there's a lot of Pittsburgh people that are sick of Mike Tomlin. Harbaugh, kind of the similar thing, whatever. And then certainly I think they're sick of Zach Taylor down there in Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah.
But with all that, we sit here today with the Browns being the most stable team in the division. That has not happened in my lifetime. Winning the division, is there. But, of all of the dysfunction, it's not in Cleveland for once. I also don't want it to be made out that we are void of dysfunction because you never, it comes back right like that. And you lose a game on Sunday, and maybe some of that starts creeping in. One social media post, as we can sometimes know about it. One YouTube video from a father. And it all comes screaming back. I'm not trying to sit here and say the Browns have figured that out because it'll always be there. But sitting here today, getting ready for Baltimore, we're not facing the problems that all these other teams are, which is great. I love it. Doesn't mean that this season won't go bad. It doesn't mean that Kevin Stefanski is going to keep his job after this year. But for right now, today, I can focus on football. Not firing the OC, not this player's injured. And we're never getting necessarily over the Nick Chubb injury, but you're beyond it at this point. And now we get ready for a Baltimore team that are facing all of these massive issues. All of these massive issues. All right, we come back. I do want to talk about Nate Ulrich's article this morning from Akron Beacon Journal. So we talked about what a pivotal decision will be facing for the Browns next season when it comes to Nick Chubb and how the Browns need to do the right thing. I'll explain what Nate had to say. I agree very much with what he had to say. Our Twitter question is up this morning. Talking little Guardians. Now that Terry Francona's final game tonight, are you worried about the future without Terry Francona? Are you worried about where the Guardians will go without their Hall of Fame manager? We'll get back into that. Got a couple other things. One thing we learned from the Browns game this past weekend, which is involving Jim Schwartz, and a little more of that Browns-Ravens preview from Jameson Hensley and Jake Trotter, talking about just really how bad the injuries are piling up for Baltimore and where the Browns go with their running back position. We'll get to all that coming up. Short show today. We'll take you up till 10:45. So got about an hour and 15 minutes to go right here. Stay with us. Big play, Fontana show. Back right after this. Browns are facing a pretty big decision when it comes to Nick Chubb next season. As we know, contract to be done, 1 year left on that deal. What do they do? Facing a knee injury that could have been a lot worse, a guy that is one of the most important players in your franchise's history, at least coming back since 1999. What do you do with that? Do you give him the honor that maybe you kind of gave to only one other guy since 1999? I'll tell you who. I'll explain it. We're back here at Matt Fontana Show, Big Play. Check us out. We're on the iHeart app. You can search that every single morning on Big Play. Just look for it. We're live streaming there every morning from 9 to 11, Chico 12 to 2. We're up on our Twitter page at Matt Fontana Show. Same thing for the YouTube page. We're up on Facebook. You can always get the show, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Are you Spotify or Apple, Ryan?
Spotify.
Hell yeah, you are. It's not to take a shot at Apple. I love Apple. Spotify is one of those things when I got it, I then asked myself how I made it this far in life without having it. So I've had Spotify probably like 6 years now. And it's one of those things that it's, every month I've got the family one because all the people on my family account also live in my house, Ryan.
It's okay. I don't pay for my Spotify either.
There you go. Right. Right. So, and it's one of those, I will just never question it. Go ahead and take that bill. Go ahead and take that money out. So get us on Spotify if you're there, or catch us on Apple Podcast as well. So great stuff from Nate Ulrich. I love Nate. We should probably maybe DM Nate. See what he's doing tomorrow. Have him on. He's the best. Nate's covered the Browns for a long time for the Akron Beacon Journal. And he posted an article this morning titled, "The Browns Must Do Right by Nick Chubb." And the whole pretense of it is, the Browns have 1 year left on his deal moving forward. When the Browns signed him to a deal, they gave him a 3-year, $36 million extension with $20 million guaranteed. That covered last season, this season, and next season. And after 2024, he'll be a free agent. And I think it's complicated with the running back position, with what this offense might look like with or without him. But I completely agree with what Nate writes here. You need to do right by him, like you did right by Joe Thomas. The NFL, Nate writes, is a cutthroat business. Unless there's an exception to the rule like Joe Thomas, loyalty doesn't exist in professional sports. But for guys like Joe Thomas, for guys even to a point like Josh Cribbs, Nick Chubb needs to enter that. Where I say this today, not knowing what the surgery will be, and not knowing what the player is that Nick Chubb will be after, they need to make Nick Chubb a lifelong Cleveland Brown. I don't ever want to see him play for another team. I will never complain about the money that you give him, even if he's a little overpaid for what he's given you. As long as he wants to be here, Nick Chubb needs to be here. For everything that he has done for this franchise, for the player that he is, you need to make that happen, Paul DePodesta and Andrew Berry. And I think it's hard to go into this offseason and say, we are going to sign you to an extension because we just don't know what your knee is going to be, what kind of players. I'm fine entering next year without a deal, but I need some sort of handshake, wink deal, or just a thought in the organization that they agree with Nate Ulrich and me that Nick Chubb cannot play football for anybody else. And yeah, there might be a time that he's 31 years old and he's not the same guy anymore and he's a backup and you might even be paying him a little bit of money. I don't care. You all want to know who else won't care? Most of Browns fans. You're always going to get that anarchist a-hole that'll sit there and say, oh my God, what are we doing this for? Wait, don't listen. They suck. Those people suck. And there's always just going to be people that go against the grain because that's what they do. Nobody in this town will be upset about them keeping Nick Chubb here forever. No one will be. And there's a point that, you just assume that there will be a dissolve of that. It'll just be mutual, all that kind of stuff. The Browns need to make that a priority. And who knows? He could come out of this surgery and, God willing, is the same guy.
Yeah, the thought of him in another jersey kind of makes me want to throw up.
I can't have it. And those are decisions that, as the salary cap's going up, you got the extra money. Just I hope that happens. I hope. And I thought Nate's article was so perfectly timed because in this where it's still raw, We've only played one game without him. I know he got hurt early in the Pittsburgh game. And there's still the unknown, right? His surgery, he didn't have surgery yet. He's going to have surgery coming up. There's reports it might be multiple. But just on it's just an MCL, a potential stretching of the ACL, which just, I don't like it. Doesn't sound great. They might find something else. But if Nick Chubb comes back to play football, which I hope he will, he'll have a great season next year, I hope. The Browns need to then sign him of an extension. He's 27 years old. If he gets back to form, the best case scenario is that he gets back to form and then this is a no-brainer, right? There's no question at all about re-signing Nick Chubb, that he comes back and he's your player. But there needs to be that understanding of there's another side to it, that there's got to be a little bit of that human element, which is hard because in a numbers game, in a business game, there's usually very little human emotion in there. And I also don't want the front office to be listening to the fan base. That's something that gets wrapped up a lot. Like, oh, if you listen to the fans, you're going to join them one day. This one's different. This one's different for what Nick Chubb has meant to this team and for everything that he brings. Will they get it done? And the other part, I actually believe that the Browns view it the same way. I do. You can't do that for everybody. There are some like Joel Bitonio. Joel Bitonio is still playing to a high level, so you signed him to this extension. He is still here. Yeah, Denzel Ward is from here, but he's still young in his career, signed his extension, all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about when it gets hard. When it gets hard to make that decision. And it might be, because there's a world that Nick Chubb is not the same guy anymore. This is your one pass. Not one, but here is your exception. Here is your do this and we'll turn a blind eye to it. Of all the guys that you want to sign or all the things that you want to do, and there's players that come and go, Nick Chubb needs to be a player that doesn't play for another NFL franchise. It needs to be with the Cleveland Browns. They can't say that. They won't say that because they need to protect themselves. They can't come out. We'll talk to Andrew Berry probably during the bye week, which is right around the corner. Or maybe midseason. I don't know. Usually he does like midseason, try to give that little midseason update, and hopefully the bye's somewhere around there. But I don't know. But the next time that Andrew Berry speaks, there will be a question about Nick Chubb's future. And Andrew Berry, being the Ivy League educated man that he is and the genius that he is, he will not stand there and tell you what he actually is going to do. That's not his job. He needs to keep all avenues open. So he'll give you some non-cliche answer. But I would love to hear some statement or some line similar to, our goal is to keep Nick Chubb in Cleveland forever. Again, the out is that's their goal, and sometimes that doesn't happen. But in this scenario where you have a player that I'm assuming also wants to stay here, let's not put that cart before the horse, but I would imagine that Nick Chubb wants to stay in Cleveland. For what he's meant to the team, for his actual play on the field, yeah, they're going to sign him to an extension. And I'm happy about that. And that is one that I vow I won't ever make a comment on it. That's not one. It's not my money to throw away. It's the Haslam's. But that's one that even if you deep down, truly deep down, sat there and started counting the money, and let's just say, I don't know, Ryan, they gave him $12 million, similar to what he got. Let's say you sign him to an extension somewhere around $11, $12 million. And there's a world that all of a sudden he's not worth $12 million. I don't care. I don't. Because you want to know what it's worth to me? It's worth me not seeing him play for the Packers or the Falcons. He's from Atlanta or from Georgia, around there. I have to see him in a Miami Dolphins uniform. I don't want to see that. And I'm thankful that we never had to see that with a guy like Joe Thomas. And it sucks that Joe got hurt and ended out. And there was that chance. They had that Denver trade ready to go. And don't ever forget that Joe Thomas himself nixed that trade to stay here. One of the many reasons that Joe is beloved in this town. There are legend guys, like, again, Josh Cribbs played for other teams. Joe Hayden moved on to other teams. The problem is with this era of Browns football, we haven't had many legends come through here, right? I want Joel Bitonio to end his career with the Browns. I think he will. I want Myles Garrett to end his career with the Cleveland Browns. I think he will. And I want Nick Chubb to end his career with the Cleveland Browns. Denzel Ward is close on that list, certainly. But there are just some guys that supersede all of that. And the wrench that is thrown into this is Nick Chubb's injury. But I do feel confident.
Maybe we can make a little GoFundMe, or we can all take 1% of our salaries.
No, I hate that. I hate that crap too. Like, oh, here, let's create a GoFundMe to pay for the... No. There's better cases for GoFundMes. There's people that actually need the money out there and all that kind of stuff. But I just thought it was a great article. Check it out. Acrobeaker Journal. Nate tweeted out. It was a great article. It was really awesome. Great stuff from Nate. And we kind of agree that the Browns need to find a way to get Nick Chubb an extension. One thing we learned from from the Browns game this past week. So this came from CBS Sports, and they did one thing that we learned from every team in their past game. And this comes from, I believe this was Jeff Kerr. Shout out to Jeff Kerr. His one thing that he learned from the Browns game and their win against the Titans, Jim Schwartz was the best offseason coaching move in the league. The Browns allowed the fewest yards per play and first down by any team through the first 3 games since the 1999 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Those are one of those legend teams too, aren't they? One of those legend defenses that you talk about. Browns have just allowed 1 offensive touchdown, the second lowest rate at just 2.6% through 3 games since 2000. How about this? Do you know the Browns have not allowed an offensive play from inside the 10? I think they've only allowed like a couple of plays. One drive, I think, has reached the red zone, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
something like that.
Because, I mean, the Pickens touchdown was like 75 yards.
Yeah.
Busted coverage.
Forced to 3 and out on 61% of their plays, the highest rate, again, since any team since 2000. The Browns are a dominant defense, and Schwartz's system has been the catalyst. It's amazing to see. And that's something that we all had hope and hype for Schwartz. Did anybody think it was going to be this good? I can't speak enough, too, about Kevin Stefanski. I'm sorry. I got to bring this back to Stefanski. Because there was a world that people thought he was hiring Schwartz to take over the job, and you're hiring your replacement. This guy's got head coaching experience. Do you not now see that this was the best hire? Be damned, all that other stuff. It seems like this was just the best hire. He didn't know it was going to get to this start. But it was clear that Jim Schwartz was exactly what this needed. And I go back to a statement from Myles Garrett after the game, and I tweeted this out. He mentioned that Jim Schwartz was the perfect match for this defense. Not from a schematic standpoint, but, Ryan, from a swagger standpoint. It's literally what Myles said. He goes, we have a bunch of guys on this team that have a bunch of swagger, and Jim Schwartz cultivates that. He encourages that, and he was the perfect match. I mean, you didn't need me to tell you that Jim Schwartz is doing an awesome job, but to read what Jeff had to say this morning on CBS, that across the league, this was the best coaching hire of anybody. Tell me it wasn't Sean Payton?
And to go on your point, Jim Schwartz coming in here, not only does he just immediately improve the defense, but in a long-term outlook on it, if Myles Garrett had to play one more year with Joe Woods, who knows? Like he might want to take the first train out of Cleveland.
That is a damn good point. I even beyond that, like a positive spin, I guess, is that you are wasting years of these guys' talent, right? That is something that I will bring up ad nauseum with this team until it's not that way anymore, is that the longer it takes for you to get this figured out, that's another year of Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb, all these stellar players. And then you fall into the trap of you then have to replace those guys. The Browns wasted good years of Joe Hayden and Joe Thomas and all these guys. You'd love to have those guys now, wouldn't you? Especially Joe Thomas. But the longer it takes you, then you start having to turn things over. And then you start, and the NFL is one of those, I don't think Myles is to this level, but you hear Devontae Adams. He's like, dude, get me out of here.
Bring him to Cleveland.
I was reading through some trade things with the Browns to jump down that rabbit hole for a second.
It's the next D-Hop. We had the D-Hop in the offseason. Now it's Devontae Adams train.
Oh, dude, I would love Devontae Adams here. You're not getting him, though, I don't think.
Okay, I understand Justin Jefferson has been statistically the best receiver in football the last 2 years, but like, watching Devontae Adams play and watching Justin Jefferson play is insane too, but watching Devontae Adams is just...
He's so good. It
doesn't make sense.
So here's Devontae Adams' contract situation. He signed a 5-year, $140 million deal.
Deserved.
Very much. But there is a potential out after next season. So let's just say, and it's not going to happen because we don't have a 1. But let's say you did trade for him. You'd be on the hook for $14 million next year and $25 million the following year. And then there's an out after that, after 2024. You could even rework that deal if you wanted to and say, we'll give you some more of that money this year because they do have surplus. And we're going too far down the rabbit hole, right? It's not. I'd love Davante Adams to come here. He's not coming. He's just not. But, man, would that be awesome?
Mention him and Coop.
We don't even have a first-round pick to give. I mean, I guess you could give him 2025. They're probably going to want one next year, though. You know he's out of there, man. Know he's out. I think Mike Evans might be one. That kind of was a scuttlebutt because he needs a new deal.
Yeah, he does.
And I think Tampa, they got off to a nice start, but you saw who they really were on Monday night. They're not good. So I'd imagine he gets out of there. No, the one that I was reading, oh God, I'm sorry. It was on a blog. I want to give credit where credit is due. But anyway, this blog brought up, what if the Denver Broncos imploded? And they brought up Garrett Bowles.
Left tackle,
which I don't think he's a big upgrade. But what about Javonte Williams, their running back? That gets complicated with, again, if you assume. Are the Browns assuming that Nick Chubb will be their starting running back next year, Ryan? Probably, right? So when you assume that, I think it's hard to go out and make a trade for somebody, right? Like on a 1-year rental, or if you get a guy like Javonte Williams, which I'm assuming he's still on his rookie contract.
I think he's definitely got at least like 2 years left.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a rookie deal, but you're still talking about draft pick assets that you're going to give him. But it did spark me to think about, we are going to start entering where, there are going to be blow-up teams. And I'm not talking about rebuilding teams because, like, the Houston Texans are rebuilding. They're not going to jettison players off. But there are players like the Tennessee Titans, who we just saw, the Las Vegas Raiders, certainly, that come up. We talked about the Denver Broncos, where these teams they need to restart their rebuild. And I've always said this about teams in any sport. When you do a half-assed rebuild, you get a half-assed result. Okay? That's like a construction saying sometimes. When you do half-assed work, you get a half-assed result. The same thing with any rebuild, right? When you don't do it fully, you are perpetually stuck in that. The problem where the Browns enter this is I don't think they have what rebuilding teams covet. I guess a young player, which I don't really want to trade anybody away from this team right now, even on this defense. Like, I'm not going to lie. Greg Newsome and MJ Emerson came to mind. Like, if you had to make a trade, if the Browns gut check, somebody called, there's a player you gotta have, and you don't have the draft picks to get it done, who are they going to ask for that's actually attainable? Probably Greg Newsome or MJ Emerson. And you could say, well, we'll part with one because you have the other one. But with how this defense is playing, I don't want to. I don't want to touch anything. Yeah. I don't want to touch anything. So now you enter this. It's a tough thing. And the ultimate question is, do the Browns really need something? Right. You know what they need is Deshaun Watson to keep playing well. That's it. If I could trade for that somehow, I'm trading for that all day. If I could just somehow trade for Deshaun Watson to start playing well, I'd give everything I had up for it. You can't do that, unfortunately. But then the rest of this team, is it left tackle? Because I would imagine that if you traded for one, you would need to then trade Jed Wills away because you have guaranteed money on his contract next year, which I kind of made the edict that we weren't going to talk about him on the show anymore. But what a bad decision it looks to be that they picked up that fifth-year option. Bad. And the Browns wanted to play it out that they thought Jed Wills was playing good and that he was doing just fine. This is a mistake. That's a mistake. Complicated situation. But there are going to be teams that are starting to signal and throw up the white flag. And the Browns could be there. You don't see a lot of... I feel like we've seen over the last couple of years some more midseason trades in the NFL, but we know in the offseason that's usually where your big trades happen and things like that. And the nice positive things, similar to DeAndre Hopkins, which is what I said when the Browns didn't get DeAndre Hopkins. I didn't want DeAndre Hopkins. That is a luxury. It's not a need. So in a situation where you don't really have a surplus of assets when it comes to draft picks, you have a surplus of cash, you don't go after luxury. You go after needs. Now, you want to tell me that the Browns need a running back? We'll find that out over the next couple of weeks. Make no mistake on that. They will find out if they need one. And then you could call. I mean, again, what are you going to do? If anything, at that point, if Jerome Ford truly isn't the answer, which I want to give him every opportunity to be, and I'm going to give him several games to figure that out. But let's say they come to that, you know what they're going to do? Just start giving Kareem Hunt more carries. Start giving him more carries. They did bring in a running back yesterday, by the way, on the practice squad. Can I tell you about the clickbait world that we live in, Ryan?
Please do.
So every morning, I arrive. I start doing what? Prepping for the show. And this show is no different than really any other show that I've done in my life. And I've had the luxury and the pleasure to learn from some of the best ever that have done this job. And one of the things that you learn about is how do you prepare for a show? Like, as much as it might seem that Ryan and I just show up and do this show, no, there's prep. Him and I text. We figure things out, right? So one of the things I do most mornings is I search for articles about the Browns and the Cavs and the Guardians. So yesterday, the Browns made 2 practice squad signings. And one of the articles that I saw today was Browns signed division rival opponent, or, division rival. Browns signed player from division rival. And it makes it sound like you stole some player. They signed Devin Asiasi, who was on the Bengals, got cut, and he's on our practice squad. We didn't sign Jamar Chase. You didn't go trade for Joe Burrow. The article literally was Browns signed division rival player. And you go, oh my God, it's Devin Asiasi. Failed draft pick from the Patriots as a tight end. I clicked on the article. Okay, stop it. They got me. They got the click out of me. But they also signed a running back yesterday. I don't even know who. Cleveland Brown. Let me see if I can find it. Wait. News for the Browns. It's Dog Pound Daily, by the way. That's the blog that had the idea about the Broncos fire sale. I can't even find it. It said something. Browns signed division rival player, Devin Asiasi. I doubt very highly that Devin Asiasi is going to ever play for the Cleveland Browns. Back to the guards real quick. We'll update our Twitter question, which is up at Matt Fontana Show. Get us in the Twitter inbox there. Are you worried about the Guardians' future with Terry Francona stepping down as manager? That's our question today. 75-25. People say yes. Mike tweets, I'm very nervous. Hoping it's not one of those you want to be the guy. Oh, yeah. You know the saying. You don't ever want to be the guy that replaces a legend. You want to be the guy that replaces the guy that replaced the legend. Because you're always compared. It's always a hard thing to do. Mike brings that up. I'm leaning towards them going outside the organization for their next manager, as I'm not sure Sandy wants the job, and I don't know if they'd offer to him either. I give Sandy Alomar a lot of credit, because I think he loves what he does. It probably means a lot in Cleveland. But the fact that he's still here is crazy. DeMarlo Hale got the interim stuff when Terry was dealing with his health stuff last year, which might actually just tell you that Sandy Alomar just likes being your catching coach and your first base coach. That's it. And maybe he doesn't want to be the manager, and he's had interim chances to do it, and he's had interviews with other places. So God bless Sandy. I appreciate him sticking around. I don't know if he'll stick around with the next organization or not, or next manager or not. But I agree with Mike. They got to go back. They got to go. It's a conversation I want to get to coming up maybe about 10-15, that they need a clean break here. They need a clean break. And what I mean is, if you have Terry kind of lingering around, that's hard for any manager to do, unless it's somebody like DeMarlo Hale. If the Guardians, for those who don't know, DeMarlo Hale's the bench coach. He's filled in from time to time, and he's really beloved in that organization, beloved by the players and certainly the coaching staff. He, I think, could work of having Terry there as like a sounding board or somebody to kind of bounce off. But if you bring in, I think, almost anybody else, you need to not have the Terry lingering thing. You know what I mean? I just think that's hard. I also believe that Terry is a realist where if he felt like it was getting to be too much, that he would step back. He gets it. Say what you want about Terry. I think he gets it. So maybe he'd take a step back. JB on Twitter, why would people be nervous? Terry has made so many questionable calls this year. I think it's perfectly fine and time for him to retire. I love Tito, and I thank him for 11 years, but it's time for a new direction. I'm more worried about having actual talent on the roster. Two valid questions or two valid points. We're talking about the talent on the roster, which you ain't going anywhere if you don't got it. The on the field, the questions in baseball on like a reliever or this or that, like I ain't getting into that. What Terry brought was a culture, and that is what needs to be reestablished here. It's going to be new, but the thing that he brought was the clubhouse. It's always more important, in my opinion, about the clubhouse than it is on the field. Yes, you have to have talent. Yes, guys got to perform. Yeah, you got to make the right decisions. But if guys are showing up, hating their life every day, not play, like the winning baseball starts in the clubhouse. It does. And that's what you need to bring. Buck Zips on Twitter. Nervous about missing the playoffs. Wait. Nervous about missing the playoffs. He's a great coach, manager. But the front office has to put the players out there for any manager. Yeah, I get that. And but also you're now facing a situation that the front office has never had to do. They've never had to hire a coach. They've only, say what you want about the players, but they've never had to do that. So we'll see. All right, let's catch a break. We got the morning update. An unfortunate story out of Northeast Ohio that's gained national attention about a Brooklyn high school head coach or football coach that no longer has a job for something that they did in their game this past weekend. Probably heard about it. We'll discuss that. We'll dive back into the Guardians. Morning update comes your way next. We're live, Big Play, Fontana Show on Twitter and YouTube. Check us out there on our social media on Twitter as well. And then check us out on Facebook, YouTube podcasts, and Apple, Spotify podcasts as well. Don't forget, Tipico. All of our shows here on Big Play are presented by our great friends at Tipico. Get signed up with the Sportsbook. Use that code BIGPLAY150. You get the $150 in bonus bets. You get a futures $30 bonus bet as well. And you can bet all the spreads, all the props, the boosts that Ryan and I love so very much. We had a good week last week. Next week, Ryan, we're putting some skin in the game, really, for all of our picks. Get signed up. You can play along with us at Tipico. Tipico on the website, on the app as well. Use code BIGPLAY150. Get signed up and partake tonight if you will. I got a bet for the Guardians tonight. We'll see how it goes. Morning update comes your way next. Fontana Show right here on Big Play. All right, all the stories you got to know this morning right here on the Matt Fontana Show. 10:02 your morning time right here on Big Play. We're bringing Ryan Tyler for a little bit of the morning update. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning,
I feel like I should, you know what? Maybe I should start the show more like with good morning to people.
Good morning, Matt.
It's good morning.
It is very good morning.
Good morning. It's been a great morning for me, Arn. Well, so my wife and I, we have two kids. We have a boy and a girl. Our son is two coming up on 2.5. He's on this thing right now where he gets up like 45 minutes before my alarm goes off. And then I have to go. So it's like there's the question of what is the worst amount of time to wake up early? Because like 45 minutes to an hour, it's too short for you to go back and get meaningful sleep, but it's long enough to feel like you missed out on sleep. You wake up 10 minutes early or like whatever. You wake up 2 hours early, I would have gone in, put him back to bed, and gone back to sleep. It was like an hour. And I was like, come on, bro. Like, what are you doing to me? So other than that, and even then, it's a blessing. He is a blessing. So that was even a good morning. There's a little fall in the air. We got finally a little rain this morning. My lawn needed it. It's a true dad statement. So it's been a good morning. Great morning. And we'll start kicking the show off that way with a good morning. So good morning, Ryan. And a good morning update
morning,
to you.
Matt. For the first story in the morning update, kind of a somber one. Northeast Ohio made national news, but not in a very good way. An Ohio high school football coach resigned Monday after his team used racist and anti-Semitic language to call out plays during a game last week. Brooklyn high school coach Tim McFarland and his players repeatedly used the word Nazi as a play call in a game against Beechwood High School. And we know, as Northeast Ohioans, Beechwood is a very heavily populated Jewish area.
He deserved to be fired, resigned, and I know he apologized for it. How does that happen? And I played football my whole life, so this is what it is. Each week you have certain calls, and you need to change them sometimes so the opponent doesn't know, like, I don't know, when I was in high school, one of our calls was Eagle. And Eagle meant a certain thing. So eventually throughout the game, the defense would figure out every time that I called Eagle, it was me telling my offensive tackle something, and they would figure it out. So we would change that each and every week. That's not new to football. But the fact that the word that they chose came up at all is offensive. And I think, they need to find, if it was just Coach McFarland, who's a well-respected head coach in Northeast Ohio, I think that whole coaching staff needs to get looked at. It's sad, and I feel bad that the players are caught up in this too, but also that like they're high school kids. Almost like what do they know? But also like you were forcing high school kids to say the word Nazi. It's terrible, absolutely horrible. And they learned from it. They did the right thing, and it's maybe a good reminder out there for some of the coaches. Like you got to be smart. And I just remember that they are shaping young people's minds here. Because not in high school, but when I got to college, there were play calls that were not derogatory or slurs or anything, but they were offensive because it was like the boys club, and they were like, oh yeah, we'll just make, jokes about this, but it was a play call. It's sad. It's sad. Again, resigning was the right call. Hopefully he can move forward from it. But yeah, it was kind of a bad thing for Cleveland to be up on the national stage about.
Alrighty, well, Colin Kaepernick is continuing his try to get back into the NFL. He wrote a letter to Jets general manager Joe Douglas on September 21st telling them that they should consider signing him to the practice squad.
Obviously, I have no insight on any of this situation with the lawsuit that Kaepernick brought with the payout. He'll never play in the NFL again. They're never going to let him back. And he could sue for antitrust. He could sue. He tried. And I think even deep down he knows that he's never going to play in the NFL again. I'm not saying that is right. And I'm not saying it's just for what he did, right? How did this start? When he started kneeling for the anthem. And what that created, the NFL wanted to get away from that as quickly as they could. So bringing him back would just resurface all of that. He sued. He got that pay. He will never play in the NFL again. You're right. They signed Trevor Siemian. Colin Kaepernick is a better quarterback than Trevor Siemian. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. But what we also know is that no team will ever sign Colin Kaepernick. it's not right. I'm not saying that it's not right, and I'm not saying that he shouldn't continue to fight the fight, but it's what's going to happen. It's just what's going to happen. Sorry. And he's going to keep trying, and it gets brought up every time a quarterback goes down. And there's some elements, Kaepernick has been out of the game for so long, so I know he posts workout videos, and he looks like he's in shape, and I know he's in shape. They'll try to lie and say, oh yeah, he hasn't been in a game. Trevor Siemian hasn't won a football game in 5 years or something crazy like that. I'm not saying it's right. And sometimes the answer of it just is what it is. Can't be it. And this one, Colin Kaepernick's never playing in the NFL again. It's not happening.
Well, we have the Ryder Cup coming up.
Yes!
No, you're a big fan of that.
Yes!
Well, Rory McIlroy admitted that it's strange not having the likes of Ian Poulter, Sergio Garcia, and Lee Westwood as a part of this year's Ryder Cup, but he said the ramifications of their decision to join the Live Golf will hit home this week. This is the first Ryder Cup since 1995 where not one of Poulter, Garcia, Westwood, or Graham McDowell will be a part of the European team.
Yeah, they're the legacy guys as much as Phil and Tiger were on the U.S. side of things. But as Rory said, that's what you get for going to Live. Now, the reason those guys aren't there, they all jumped to Live. And I know that it's not necessarily for this show today or whenever, but Ryan, there's this kind of storm brewing of what is this merger? So we have the Live Tour, we have the PGA Tour. They were so against one another. Guys were fighting. Guys were saying things in the media. And now they merge. And Live Golf basically bought the PGA Tour in a snake move. Jay Monahan's a piece of crap. Backstabbing son of a gun is what he is. I hate the Live Tour. I hate him. But they are now one. And it happened in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the season. What I, as a giant golf fan, are now waiting for, what is this merger actually look like? Right? There are billions of dollars on the line. I don't think this was something that they signed a quick contract and it's all done and done. I still don't know if they know what is going to be figured out when it's all said and done, but that's what this offseason is going to be. I believe that after the Ryder Cup, they will finally give us all a vision of what professional golf will look like. And I don't like any of the Live guys. And the crappy thing is, I'm a Brooks Koepka fan. I like Dustin Johnson. Dustin Johnson was my favorite golfer. And they left and they sold out and they went to a tour that I don't like. That was hard to swallow. That all being said, they made their decisions. Brooks is on Team USA. He made it, which is a little bit of a shock. Won a major, obviously, this past season. But yeah, the rest of the Live guys, keep them out. They're going to be kept out. And I subscribe to, I think the Live Golf bought the PGA Tour just to try to keep some of these guys relevant. But if you don't accumulate the right amount of points and you don't play in enough PGA Tour events, and if you're not a captain's pick, you ain't making it. So, suck it. Take it. I cannot wait for tomorrow. Friday. Early morning, like 1:30 in the morning. I'm so jacked. The Ryder Cup's one of my favorite events every other year. I love it. But that's what they get. Sorry. You left, you don't get to show up. And if it hurts Team Europe, good. Team USA is trying to win the Ryder Cup on European soil for the first time since like 1992 or 3 or something like that.
Alrighty, well, if you remember after week 1, the Browns made Stephen A. Smith's top 5 NFL teams list. However, after week 3, they are no longer there. So he rounded it out. Number 5, Chiefs. 4 Bills, 3 Eagles, 2 49ers, and rounding it up at the top, how about them Dolphins?
Miami Dolphins. I think the Chiefs at 5, I think, is a little criminal. My top 5 would be Miami, San Fran, Kansas City, Philly. Who is this other one? Who am I missing? Did he have Seattle in there? No. Give me top 5. Give me Stephen A's top 5 again, please.
It was number 5 Chiefs, number 4 Bills.
Oh, Bills.
Number
okay,
3 Eagles, 49ers, and Dolphins.
I don't know if I could quite put the Bills in there. I'll give my top 4. Miami, San Fran, Chiefs, Eagles. That's it. Those are my top 4 right there. Bills, take them or leave them. We'll see.
Alrighty, well, last for the morning update, Antonio Brown is on a tear again on Twitter, taking shots at the likes of Josh McDaniels, Matt Canada.
Oh, hey, catching strays
as
there,
well as Sean Payton, among others.
For what? To try to get back in the league? To try to just... I think when you take the tact or the edict of, I'm just going to call out how much these guys suck in a way to try to get hired by those people, probably not a good idea. Antonio Brown, he needs help. He needs to not get on Twitter. I mean, we're very close, Ryan, to it becoming he's going to start selling something. He's going to be on there to start to push a product. The question is going to be, though, is he a Hall of Famer? Because he is. Like,
without
a number
a doubt.
standpoint, he is. So eventually he's going to have to be inducted down there in Canton. And that's going to be a little awkward, I think, for the NFL. I thought you were going to go with another wide receiver story. Tyreek Hill.
I did some very
family show,
but
he's got a very
whoever wants to go look it up, Tyreek Hill knows what he wants to venture into after he retires from the NFL.
Very adult themed there. Interesting. But yes, Antonio Brown, a little weird. Tyreek Hill, maybe a little weird. I don't know. But kind of is what it is. They're both really good receivers. I don't know what to tell you. All right, we come back. We'll wrap it up because we're going to have a short show. We're going to take you up to about 10:45. So we'll do one long segment here coming up. I've got quarterback rankings after week 3. Where did Deshaun Watson come out? Did he move up? Did he move down? I'll tell you that. We'll dive back into some Guardians as well. Our Twitter question is up at Matt Fontana Show, asking everybody, are you worried about the future of the Guardians without Terry Francona? We'll jump into all that. It's Fontana Show right here on Big Play. There's a story that just doesn't seem to die right now with the Cleveland Browns. We've discussed a little on this show, and it got brought up again today. Week 4 NFL recap with Dan Graziano and Jeremy Fowler. The subject, the Browns and Jonathan Taylor. It's hot and heavy before the season, maybe. Certainly when Nick Chubb got hurt. And now here we are. So they do this after every week. They run through their biggest questions throughout the week. And it's the first one actually was, what has changed your mind the most since the start of the season? And Dan Graziano said the AFC North. And what changed for him was he thought the Bengals would be running away with this, and in fact, they're not. And he says the Browns could be a major factor in the division if Deshaun Watson can just start playing decent football, which he kind of did on Sunday. You bring in Jim Schwartz, you add him with Myles Garrett, looks prime for a Defensive Player of the Year run. He thinks Baltimore and Cleveland will have the major factors. Don't sleep on Pittsburgh. But that was one of Dan Graziano's biggest change from the start of the season was the AFC North. I kind of agree with him. Then the question to them, will Jonathan Taylor be traded before the NFL trade deadline? Dan Graziano, I'll say yes. From what he understands, Taylor still does not want to play for the Colts. There's been no change of heart. I don't imagine watching them play, he feels the same. Like, okay, they got a scrappy, kind of crappy win against the Ravens. Is that an offense you're really running back to get to? Is that a team that you really feel like they're going to be really good? I don't know. So Graziano's saying that Taylor is still out. He doesn't want to play for Jim Irsay. He doesn't want to play for the Colts. He's got one more game that he is out because he's on the PUP list. Here's where it gets interesting. It wouldn't surprise me if his first game of the season was in a different uniform. The Browns might end up being more motivated to make a deal than they want us to believe after the Nick Chubb injury. Breadcrumbs. Not pixie dust or magic dust, just breadcrumbs getting dropped all over the place. Now, Jeremy Fowler follows up and thinks that Jonathan Taylor's staying in Indianapolis. He goes, for as much as Taylor would like to be dealt, I don't see a team that's clamoring to give up a day 2 pick for him. He writes, Cleveland makes sense, and Andrew Berry never shies away from a potential deal, but Jerome Ford is a pretty good tandem. Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt are a pretty good tandem. And that's where I think I needed Jeremy Fowler on that for a second to kind of maybe bring us back down to earth. The Browns will give Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt every opportunity, probably more specifically Ford, to prove to them that they can be the starting running backs that they need to piecemeal this offense together. One game will not tell me that. Okay, one game against the Titans is not enough for me to ascertain if these guys are actually it. Now, where it also gets interesting, if you subscribe to what Dan Graziano is saying, that Taylor is going to get moved, now we start looking around, what other team would trade for him? Everybody was hot and heavy in Miami. Think they need him now? Did you see what Raheem Mostert and Devin Achane did this past weekend?
Yeah,
Devon Achane?
Yeah, I was going to say, did you see he came out and specified his name?
Devon Achane.
So it's like, yeah, it's like, I can't even pronounce it. I'm going to fumble it.
I think it's, nice. I think it's Devon. Is it not? It's not Devin. It's Devon Achane.
I'm going to go find it.
Please find it. Because I don't want to be mispronouncing his name either. But those guys scored 8 touchdowns in their game. I don't think they need a running back there. So that's if I really want to dive into a way for the Browns to trade for Jonathan Taylor, it would be that the market falls off, which I think could happen. But then there's also teams like Tampa Bay that are maybe in a better situation than they thought, and they could go trade for him. You know, Chicago, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of teams, and they bring up some of those teams in this article to say it's always twofold. The market could get better because there are teams that are missing a running back, or they're better than they expected and they could really use them. And then conversely, there are teams that find a diamond in the rough, and all of a sudden you don't need a running back anymore. We know the position group. We know it's not quite what it is anymore. I just thought it was interesting that the Browns were still mentioned in this by Dan Graziano as believing that maybe they're a little more interested than we suspect. Did you find it?
I found it. It is Devon Achane, not Achane.
Achane. Okay, Devon
Achane. Achane.
Got to say it 3 times fast. I'm going to say Achane. Achane. Devon
Achane.
Well, now you're screwing me up again. Say it once more.
Devon Achane.
Achane.
Yes.
It's like A-Chan.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. Now we're good. He plays for the Dolphins. And even playing in Cleveland doesn't really matter. But that's been something that's kind of just been like, it just won't go away. You know what I mean? And it's because I don't think it's going to go away until Jerome Ford has like a 100-yard rushing game. They need to give him every opportunity. And also, under the guys that you still need Deshaun Watson to play better. Like, that's whatever we all know. We've talked about it so much. That is what you need. And a good quarterback can make something out of a good run. That's not a shot at Raheem Mostert or A-Chan.
Good job.
Thank you. But when you have Tua Tagovailoa and an offense that's humming the way that they are, yeah, you could take a running back that you don't really know much about and turn them into a superstar. They could find a way. And it does speak to where the Browns, again, I don't want to give a pick for Jonathan Taylor. I don't. You know, we talked about Nick Chubb's future and how I hope the Browns sign him to an extension and keep him around. Don't need Jonathan Taylor. Don't. Okay. It keeps coming back in. What if, and I'm just saying what if, this weekend you go out and you beat you beat Baltimore. Pittsburgh plays Houston. Shouldn't lose that game. But then the Bengals play the Titans. Let's say that you just wax the Ravens. Smoke them. Maybe the Bengals lose and Joe Burrow gets hurt. Would you then not say the Browns are in the driver's seat to win the division? That's motivating to say, let's go do something to really put this out of reach. You know what I mean? Like, instead of making a move to say we got to keep pace, what if the floodgates just open for you? And you feel like you are now at the luxury to go make that kind of trade, just to blow everybody away and just stamp it out. Knowing relative that it's Jonathan Taylor. Like, he's good. I like him. But is that a move? I guess here's the ultimate question. If you were in that position and you felt like Jonathan Taylor is just the end-all, be-all, that's the final piece to you winning this division, then yeah, you go make that move. Not happening right now. And really, I think it'll be, you want to give a couple of games to see what this running game has. But I found it so funny, Ryan, that almost every Jonathan Taylor conversation, it seems like the Browns just get wiggled into that somehow.
Yeah, I'll pass.
Why? Because of the picks or because of Jonathan Taylor?
No, I mean, I like Jonathan Taylor. I'm happy where we're at with Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt.
All right. Quarterback rankings we go to from Cody Benjamin at CBS Sports. Patrick Mahomes, number 1. Tua Tagovailoa is 2. Jordan Love, 3. Huh.
Yes, sir.
Huh.
Yes, sir.
All right. Herbert, 4. Purdy, 5. Where's Jalen Hurts on this, by the way? 11. CJ Stroud is 10. Where are Deshaun Watson? 17. Hold on to this, Browns fans. He's got Baker Mayfield, 16. Right up on Deshaun Watson. After a scattershot primetime loss to the Steelers, the polarizing Watson rebounded against Tennessee, showing more comfort on the move to rout the Titans in Cleveland's first matchup without Nick Chubb. 17's a little low. He's better than that. He showed better than that against the Titans. I think he's in the realm of Mac Jones and Andy Dalton. Josh Dobbs, 21. All right, if you had to cast a vote on the worst quarterback in the NFL.
Zach Wilson?
Yes, correct. Poor Brian Hoyer is second to last because Jimmy Garoppolo is in concussion protocol.
Yeah. Call
the Raiders. Hang on. Let me look this up. See what the Raiders got. Go get Josh Jacobs. How about that? No. We talked about trading for Javonte Williams. We did talk about trading, but Devontae Adams. I don't know. Call them. See what you got going in the Raiders seem to be a team that should just blow it up. Mm-hmm. It's going to cost Josh McDaniels his job. I think Josh McDaniels is costing himself his job anyway.
Yeah.
But to see that, yeah, Brian Hoyer's going to have to start for them, not great. Not good in that situation. Tonight, the Guardians are going to honor Terry Francona. And it'll be his final home game, even though I've joked. This literally just came out 6 seconds ago. Matt Lombardo, senior NFL insider for FanBuzz. Potential landing spots for Davante Adams, 49ers, Cowboys, Packers, Bengals, Lions, and the Cleveland Browns.
Put him in the Lions uniform. I'm all for that.
FanBuzz, top destination article, or top Davante Adams trade destinations by Matt Lombardo. Came out yesterday. Just came out. I just saw it this morning. I want to see why he says the Browns. Okay, Dallas, Cincy, San Francisco, Cleveland Browns. The Browns have gone all in on quarterback Deshaun Watson with inconsistent returns thus far. He must find a way to replace the production lost by Nick Chubb. Enter Adams and a commitment to the vertical passing game. Miami's got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Philly's got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. He's talking about receiver duos, right? He brings up Lockett and DK Metcalf. And the point here, if I could get out of this Southwest article ad, if I could. I lost my place on it. Clicked on an ad. All right, we're back. If the Browns want to elevate Watson and build an offense capable of keeping pace with teams like the Dolphins, Chiefs, and Bills, adding Adams would make a lot of sense. We already went through the contract. You're on a 2-year hook for Davante Adams.
I would buy that jersey so quick.
I know your answer. In a hypothetical fantasy world, you could instantly make one trade. Would you rather have Jonathan Taylor or Davante Adams?
That's not even close.
Well, for you, I know. I get that. I understand that. I got that. I see where you're voting. Maybe write that down for a little.
Davante 1,000%.
I kind of think Davante Adams too, just because I think he's a better player. But Jonathan Taylor would fit. Write that down for a question on tomorrow's show. And we need to preface it, and we'll preface it again tomorrow, that this is a pure fantasy world trade. And we'll revisit with everybody about why these two names came up. But it's intriguing. It's a little interesting.
Amari Cooper and Davante Adams would instantly be top 5 wide receiver duos, and they might even be number 1.
Well, it's called for what it is, too. I'd send DPJ back. They have to give up something. So now I'm rationalizing this to make sense. There's your NBA type move, too, because you're trading away Davante Adams with 2 years left on his deal to take back an expiring contract in Donovan Peoples-Jones. You're going to have draft picks in that. Like, there's no way. And I think that's maybe the problem in all that. And that's why it's going to be a fantasy world hypothetical is they're going to want a 1. It's Davante Adams. You know what I mean? But write that down for tomorrow's show. We'll do a little Madden type trade here with that. What I was really going to talk about after seeing that pop up was Terry Francona. So tonight they are honoring him. Even though nobody has said the word retirement, and we all know that it's going to be Terry's last game, they're handing out shirts to the first 20,000 fans. Love to know this in the Twitter inbox, at Matt Fontana Show, at Matt Fontana83. What's your favorite ballpark giveaway? Like when you go, they do hats, they'll do gloves, they'll do jerseys, they'll do T-shirts. What's your favorite ballpark giveaway when you go? I don't think they do bats anymore. Probably for safety reasons, I can only imagine. And I remember something that they used to do, like ballpark, they're not great gloves, but the T-shirts are where it's at. Like even to jerseys, which I know they do a lot of jersey giveaways, and I, have a ton of them from when you go. But if you're a true fan, more often than not, you probably own some sort of a jersey. But those jerseys are high quality, so I get that. For me, it's all about the T-shirts. T-shirts are the best giveaway at any arena, any game. Because they're the most usable, right? You could take it to... Everybody needs a T-shirt. Ryan, you know what I'm doing for a good chunk of this weekend? Painting my basement. You know what I need? A T-shirt that I don't care about. I have a painting T-shirt, but you should always use another one, right? If you work out, everybody can... T-shirts are the best. So I'm not going to the game tonight, but if I were, that would be one... Do you ever go to a game that you actually, write down that you want to go because they're giving away a bobblehead or something?
I have not, but I know people that do for sure.
I do have a couple buddies that are like bobblehead collectors, and they want to have a lot of bobbleheads. So I would say that probably the most. Would you say bobbleheads would have to be the most popular for people?
I would think so. It's just so associated with the ballpark, and it's a cool little knickknack for sure.
Well, and the ones like they just did one for Kid Cudi, and that's like you can get one for a player. There's some that I can go get you Carlos Santana bobblehead. I can get you Kevin Love bobblehead. When they do the one-off ones, I think are always kind of fun. But they're doing T-shirts tonight for Terry. Some people thought it should have been bubblegum. They should be doing a scooter giveaway tonight for Terry. I don't know. Maybe that's something that they should do for him. But no joke, for tonight, it is something that we are witnessing the end of the era. And it was a great run, probably over expectations, right? Whatever your expectations were, that you had Terry Francona here for 11 years. He won went to the playoffs 6 times, won the division 3 of those times, or maybe 4. The team that he took to the playoffs last year was one of the most impressive managerial jobs that I've ever seen. And there's always going to be that innate fear of where do we go next and what will be next. You have to have faith that this team is going to get it figured out. There's plenty of time for the Guardians front office to get that figured out. Tonight is all about Terry Francona. I'm sure at some point they're going to have something special lined up. I hope that he somehow gets on the field. I mean, Terry's going to hate that, and I know he doesn't like that kind of stuff. He deserves a standing ovation. I hope there's a lot of people down there tonight, Ryan. Like you mentioned, you're going to go to the game tonight. My fear is that it's a Wednesday night, and you also didn't have a lot of time to prepare. And it goes back to the nitpicky thing. If they would have just announced a month ago that Terry Francona was retiring, you'd have more people down there tonight. And they're doing this special. There is a ticket special. I want to tell everybody about it if you haven't seen it with the Guardians. It's $11, right, to honor the 11 years that he was here. So there's an $11 special for the game tonight. I don't exactly know where all the tickets are at, but you can get into the ballpark tonight for $11. And they want to have it full as they can to honor Terry. And at some point, to give a standing ovation, to give something for Terry Francona on the way out the door. And that, Mr. Ryan, gets us to our Tipico bet of the evening. Use your code BIGPLAY150 on Tipico. BIGPLAY150 gets you your free bonus bets in there with our friends at Tipico. You deposit $50, you get the $150 plus the $30 bonus future bet. Get in the action, load up football season using promo code BIGPLAY150 on Tipico. The money lines, the spreads, all of it. For tonight, Ryan, there's only one place to go. And that is to the Cleveland Guardians, 6'10", Shane Bieber on the hill. Oh, I like this one. Our big play boost, actually. Shane Bieber, 5+ strikeouts. Guardians win, plus 150. Yes! I love it. I love it. I love that bet. I'm signing in right now. You know what? I'm putting a big 20 spot on that.
Oh.
I'm putting a 20 spot on that.
Win for Tito.
Win for Tito. Win for Tito. That's our big play boost on Tipico. Again, Guardians get the win, and Shane Bieber to strike out 6. So I'm putting that. That's with our friends at Tipico. Use that code BIGPLAY150 and get signed up there. Tonight is an important night for the Guardians to get a win and send them out the right way. I want to say this if I haven't said it already in the show. I thank Terry Francona for everything that he has done in this town. And I'm not saying that the baseball. Sorry, I get my face ID. I just get the mic out of the way. We're logged in. I love that too. Just log in. Here's your face ID. Done and done. Done. Place the bet. $20 are in. Boom. Done. Placed. Tipico. Get signed up right now. Done. In there. I want to thank Terry Francona for everything. There are people out there that'll bring up the negative parts. The Mickey Callaway situation. And sure. And that is a part of this story. Not all stories are all positive. And it wasn't. And there were some tough times. There were some lean times. And there were times that people questioned what Terry Francona really meant for this team and what he was doing. The time is right to move on. I hope he enjoys retirement. I hope he's still around the team. I figure he will be. And I hope that he gets healthy. Spends time with his family, because that's really what it's all about. Terry's got a lot of health issues going on right now. But I thank him. At the end of all of it, I thank him. Because he stabilized some things here. I don't think it was ever that the Guardians were ever going to leave this town. But he, in a way, brought us some of our greatest memories. The Rajai Davis home run, the win in the pennant, all of those things. And that's something that I feel better about where the Guardians are, this jumping off point, right? They have a jumping off point where they are heading into a bit of an unknown. But you are jumping off in an okay spot. It's not a great spot, but it's also not a horrible spot. You are leaving this era of baseball and going into the next one with some good players and a good idea of what you need this team to be and what the best version of this team is going to be. Terry said it after the game yesterday. There was a question asked to him, do you want to be involved in the search process for the next manager? And he kind of said no, because he said, I've done it this way my whole life, the way that I think it needs to be done. But somebody could come in here and be the exact 180 opposite of what I do. It doesn't mean that that's wrong. And it doesn't mean that my way is the only right way to get it done. So he didn't want to inundate himself into that. And he didn't want to dilute the process. And that is something that as we watch how the Guardians approach this and how they see this play out, do you go the opposite? Do you just completely move on from Terry Francona? But it doesn't change the fact of what he did for this town and what he did for this team. And we should always be thankful for that. Every single day, we should be thankful for what Terry Francona did for this team.
Do you have a favorite Tito memory?
You know, I saw McNeil, Reflog on Twitter was doing the one, like last year when he got into it with that umpire, and he's just like, if you're watching on the video, but he's just screaming expletives at him was great. Reflog did the Trevor Bauer thing when he chucked the ball and he goes down and he just goes, what the wrong with you? Probably it, but I mean, my favorite memories are like the scooter. You know, seeing him at the Cavs playoff games and stuff like that. I mean, that's probably my favorites. The Bauer memory is more about Bauer than it is Tito. Ejection's part of it, but I'm gonna honestly the World Series, like the videos of him in the clubhouse spraying the champagne. That'll probably be it for me. But really, it's just that he rode his scooter to work every day. It got stolen. Apparently, got stolen again too. By the way, so that's probably going to be it. Where he is one of those people that he's an honorary Clevelander. Yeah. Like he's lived here. I think he's going to live here, but he really ingratiated himself to this town. Yeah, and we're thankful for him for that. So, yeah, probably. Yeah, one of those ejections are probably the pennant. I think that's where it is. All right, big day for the Browns out in Berea as they're gearing up, getting ready for the Ravens. Ryan and I talked a lot about that, man. We just have this supreme, like, uber confidence going into this game. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But conversely, it's not just the Browns that I'm keeping an eye on today. I want that Baltimore practice participation report coming out a little bit later today. Keep my eye on Linderbaum. Keep my eye on Ronnie Stanley. You know, Odell Beckham to a point. Rashad Bateman to a point, and some of those defensive players, sure. But the Ravens, I'm sitting here and I'm telling you this, and we'll do it a little bit more in tomorrow's show. Early show, we got to wrap up today. There's a show coming in to record a little bit later, so we're wrapping up a little early today. But the Ravens are in a really bad spot right now. They are really hurt, and they are searching for answers on that offense. Not just because of injured players, but not just because of J.K. Dobbins, but they don't really know that. You can't have Lamar Jackson for 100 yards. They have some real issues going on out there. I'm going to keep my eye out for that participation report. We're going to dive a lot back into the Browns tomorrow. Good luck to the Guardians tonight. Let's get it done. Tipico big boost, big play boost. Get the Bieber strikeouts, get the win. Boost it up to 120. I like it very much. Don't forget, coming up, Chico, 12-2 on his normal slot today. It is Wednesday, so we have, is it Hanford?
Bonus time.
Bonus time. With one Bruce Drennan tonight. So you get that on the Big Play Network. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on YouTube. You can follow our show at Matt Fontana Show across all of those. If you missed it, go back Apple Podcasts, Spotify as well. And, of course, you just get the replay on our social media platforms as well. So, again, Chico coming up 12-2. We're out a little bit early. Drennan's on a little bit earlier or a little bit later today. So catch it all right there. We appreciate everybody joining us this morning, each and every morning right here on the Matt Fontana Show on Big Play. For Ryan, I'm Matt. And, as always, take it easy.